it.
Just do the thing.
All right.
Yeah, just do the thing.
I'm just doing the thing.
Good to roll.
All right. Oh, we're good to roll. Are we recording?
Yep.
Yay!
Yay!
Hi. Yeah, that's so nice. Like enthusiastic cheer all around. Woohoo. Alrighty. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Replayer Podcast. I am Pagan, your host this week, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Dan.
What's up, everyone? And what's up, Pagan?
What's up? I'm good. What's up with you? You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
It's like, let me check. Yeah, I'm all right.
Yep, we're good.
And joining us today is no stranger to the Replayer Podcast, Stephanie. Hi, Steph. Welcome.
Hi.
Hello, aka Ja'Cory.
Ja'Cory.
Ja'Cory?
Jedi
Ja'Cory.
Ja'Cory.
It's
Ja'Cory.
yeah, Ja'Cory.
Where did that name come from?
I'm glad you asked.
Hey!
There we go.
I feel like I've asked before, but go ahead. Rejog my memory.
I played Star Trek Online on and off for years, and one time I was trying to create a Bajoran character, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out what I wanted to name her, so I just let the system name me.
Oh, it was a random auto name.
Randomly generated name?
Yeah, and
it's a good
so
name.
I had to come up with the idea of how do I pronounce this. So I said Ja'Cory. Okay, all right. And then that was right before I registered my gamer tag with Xbox Live. So I just ended up using it there. And then when I got Steam, I used it there, and it's just kind of followed me since then.
It's a nice little identifier. I did not know you were a Star Trek fan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Because, like, I mean, side note, I would be really interested in doing a Star Trek episode with Drew and Wayne. And now you.
And Brandy.
Get
just
Hood on
all
there. Hood
giant
is the
Star Trek
Brandy's
nerds.
also a giant
Oh my
Star Trek
God.
fan?
Brandy's a massive Star Trek fan.
How did I not know this?
Oh God, yes.
Massive.
You should all have like a little free for all. You know what? I'll just be the person being like, go ahead.
I'll just
Explain
moderate.
it.
I'll do the producing on the side, and you moderate, Pagan, and
I'll
we'll let
hold the
them just have
debates.
at it.
Yeah, I'll just be like, listen, why Star Trek?
And then just stand
let
back.
them go off for an hour and a half. Yeah, just cheers, bud.
Why? Do
Yeah,
we
why?
have to have a reason?
Well, you know, why would I watch it over something else? Like, why would I watch
That's
it
true.
over anything? Yeah. So, like, what makes Star Trek? Tell me more about this concept. Pitch it to me in the Hollywood room. I'm sure
I'll save
somebody will
that
go
for-
off on that
for
one.
that time. Yeah.
Thank you. If anybody wants to hear that, you can put that in the comments and let us know.
Oh God.
Yeah, let us
I
know
think
if you
there's
want
so
to
many
hear.
Star Trek
Long
nerds like
conversation.
in our community. There's like, because every so often I'll be talking about something and they're like, yeah, I'm not really a fan of that. I used to really be like, big Star Trek fan, or I'm like, what? Like,
What?
okay, cool.
I'm actually
I did not know
more.
this.
I'm a new Star Trek fan, if that's possible.
You're a new
Like
Star Trek fan?
I used to not like Star Trek until the last couple of years. Like it was back in like 2017 or 18. I started watching The Next Generation, and I was like, oh, I get it. I get it now. Okay, cool.
Is that available somewhere now? Like, if I wanted to watch that right now, is that like available on Netflix?
It's on Netflix here in the States, as far as I know.
It is.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't think it's on
And
Netflix in Ireland.
CBS All Access carries everything Star Trek because of their ownership of the property.
I feel like I might, for CBS, I would need to get a VPN. I think.
Possibly. I watch it through
Speaking of
Amazon
VPN.
Prime, 'cause you can have
Yeah,
No.
I wish that was
We
like
do not have a
a
VPN
segue into
sponsor.
sponsorship. That would be fucking dope.
VPNhost.com. Is that what it is? I don't even know what it's called.
I'm checking Star Trek.
While you're doing that, I can let people know that Stephanie is joining us this week as our one-on-one replayer guest. That we're gonna get to know Stephanie a little better this week.
Yeah, for sure. It's not on there. Just the animated series.
Oh, the new one? I've heard that's really good.
Yeah,
the
I'd
new
like to
one's
watch it.
really good.
And Nolan's in that too.
Yeah, and Jack Quaid, right?
Yeah.
Jack Quaid, yeah, one of the main.
Better start watching that. Wait, but if none of you guys have watched that yet?
I have not watched it yet.
Stephanie?
What, the new one?
The new one? The new animated series?
Yes.
Would I need to have context?
Probably not.
No, not really. But if you have seen, I would say if you've seen The Next Generation and you've seen the original series, if you've seen those two, a lot of the jokes will drop little callbacks.
Okay.
Little Easter eggs.
Yeah, sure.
You don't need it for the humor, but it takes the humor to a next level if you know the background.
Like inside jokes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. I will definitely check that out. But yes, as Dan said, welcome, Stephanie. It's really lovely to have you back on the show. I know that some people might not have listened to the other episodes or anything, so we're just going to do a quick catch up and ask a bit about yourself, if that's okay. Where are you from?
Get to know you, Stephanie.
Where am I from?
Where are you from?
North Carolina. I am currently in Raleigh, North Carolina. I've lived here pretty much half my life. I grew up in a small town a little further toward the coast from here. So Eastern North Carolina is home. It's been home for most of my life.
Oh, okay. Have you ever moved outside of the state?
I have. I lived up in Danville, Virginia for a year because I was working at a place near there. And for 5 months when I was 30 years old, I lived in California, in Anaheim, California, with two Filipino ladies it was the best 5 months ever.
For 5 months? Why such a short time?
So I went out there to take some IT training, and then I got hired to teach at the school. And then the school went bankrupt, so I couldn't stay.
Aw.
I'm like, there's nothing, unless I get a job like next week, because there was embezzlement, so I didn't have enough paycheck. They even cut me off, so I didn't have cash at all.
Hey, time to go home.
Like, I'm going home. I'm going back to North Carolina. Bye. And I drove cross country, to get there back and forth.
Wow. You drove cross country to get there?
Yeah. It took.
How long did that take you?
It takes about 4 days if you're driving somewhere in the 8 to 12 hours per day range.
I must have been hauling
How
ass.
often did you make that trip?
I drove from California to New York in 2.5 days.
Yeah.
And that's the longest distance you can pretty much drive across the country.
Yeah.
This is all blowing my mind. Honestly, this is just all firstly, the fact that your school could go bankrupt. Was it a private school then, I presume?
Yeah, it was a commercial trade school kind of thing.
Okay.
There were two brothers that had started it, and apparently what we didn't know is that they were notorious for starting businesses and embezzling, and then closing the business and then going off and doing something else. Yeah. So I actually took a school loan out to go to it, and my school loan was completely forgiven.
Oh,
because of the legal issues that they had with that school.
That is good.
That is a tale.
That is a tale. And then what did you...
But it got me to California for 5 months.
Yeah, for 5 months. That seems kind of nice, though. I've been there for a day and a half.
I was there for 4 years, but that sounds so much more boring to say, well, I was in the military, so...
That's true, though. I mean, 5 months is a stint. You know what I mean? It is a stint. Did you head back then to North Carolina from there? Have you been there in North Carolina ever since?
Yeah.
Okay, fair. And you're a voiceover artist, right? Or a voice actor? What do you? What would you consider yourself as? What would you title yourself as? Because I don't want to do that. You know, when you're like, oh, you're a voiceover, and they're like, no, voice actor. I'm like, oh, shit,
excuse
sorry,
me.
my bad.
I'm a
little. What would you classify as?
Mostly voiceover. So the only thing that I've actually gotten paid for is narration. So it's not necessarily acting. I act like I'm teaching it.
Do you have a specific voiceover voice?
Good question.
I have a very well articulated voice where I try to actually remove my
like
accent.
I know Pagan's voiceover
I'm gonna find
voice.
a sentence.
Yeah,
We'll
that's true.
solve your crimes when you run out of options, and we'll need a paycheck.
All right, that was good.
Yeah,
Love
so
that.
I do that for work. So I help create online learning stuff with my job, and so I do the voiceover for that as well. Which is why I took time to actually build like a sound booth and everything.
That's awesome. So what is do you mind if this is too personal, by the way, at any point?
No.
Just tell us and we can move on and we'll cut it. But what do you do then in your job or your company? Do you work for a company or are you working for yourself?
I work for a software company called Red Hat that's actually headquartered here in Raleigh. We're a global company, but
I think there's one in Ireland.
There is. There is one in Ireland. I've actually worked remotely with some of the people in Ireland. So my background in my career is training. I've been everything from a middle school teacher to a tech school Linux administration instructor, and excuse me, sorry.
That was from Dan making you do the voice. Oh, Dan.
No. It's from the fact that it's spring here now and
allergies.
pollen.
That sounds like me when I try too hard to do like demon voices. I'm like,
hold on just a second.
It's just Stephanie's process.
Decline. So my headphone's connected to my phone.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay now?
We can hear you.
Okay. That was weird. Sorry.
I heard a little bit of vibrations.
I heard like your phone buzzing or something.
I'm like, what? What was that?
Happening?
Okay, I'm taking that off. I'm putting that in there. Well, my wrist also buzzed, so I had to take that off. Where was
Jesus,
I?
for a second there, I thought you were telling me your wrist actually buzzed. Like your wrist
You got a vibrating wrist.
I'm like, do they have some sort of chip that I don't know about? Like, what are you talking about? Realizing
we're high tech here, man.
Yeah, listen.
We are high tech.
That's the Apple Watch 5.
America.
It was just my little Fitbit. Yeah. So I've been everything from middle school teacher to like I said, like a Linux administration instructor. I've been a tech writer because I actually really enjoyed the writing side more than actually delivering the training after a while, because delivering training is wonderful, but you have to travel everywhere and it gets tiring. And I just kind of wanted something where I had a more predictable schedule and could stay at home a little bit more. I'm not a homebody, but come on, when I'm traveling half the month, that gets a bit much. So I ended up at Red Hat doing tech support just to get my foot in the door. And then they saw that I had the training background, and now I'm back in the training circles.
But by doing the voiceover for training?
Well, no, I started with creating training. So they moved me into a position where I was writing and editing training for the company. Internal training. So it's not the customer facing training that goes with our certification courses. That's a different team. Our focus is our internal employees.
And how long have you been with Red Hat?
7.5 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's the longest I've been at any one job, because IT industry being what it is,
Sure.
Layoffs and all sorts of stuff. So.
For sure. But I presume your passion is in voiceover and narration or voice acting. Is that right?
It is. It is, but I have to admit that because I have had such a long career in the writing and training side, that you get to a certain point where you've had years of experience and there's a level of comfort. You're at a salary level that you're comfortable with. You're getting benefits of the company. And it's a big risk to try to leave that and do something completely new. So
I hear you.
I've just been finding ways. Yeah, just been finding ways to work it in when I can. It was natural for me to do it at work because we needed voiceover for our stuff. And I'm like, hey, I want to do that. And then they heard me do a couple of them, and then they started saying, hey, can you do all of them now? So I do that. I don't do like the quantity that comes through. I'm probably in the booth for only a couple hours a week at most.
That's more than most people. Yeah. Well, no, I hear you on that though. I feel like, especially if you have, honestly, I think like, yeah, salary definitely plays a good part of it because you need to pay rent and fees and mortgages and things like that as well.
Yeah.
Totally get that. But I do think like, the benefits really do help, especially if it's like health benefits or dental or maternity leave, like especially for me or anything like that with my company. I'm like, I'm loving these benefits. I'm sticking around for
benefits.
These. Which is kind of cool. Whereas I think like maybe before I wasn't in this particular role, like I'm like in a role with a very big American company, and that's why I think the benefits are so good. So I hear you. I hear you on that. All right. Especially with Red Hat. I think like knowing what I know of Red Hat, I think they are very good employers, and people that I know who are employed by them, they've definitely been there for a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great company. I feel really fortunate. I work with a great team too. Most of them are actually in India. So all my meetings are in the morning. Like I'm getting up at like super early in the morning to have these meetings. And then in the afternoon, I'm like, okay, meeting's over. Can I take a nap?
Wait, what time would you get up? Like what time would you have a meeting at? Typically?
I say it's early, but people who are parents of young children would laugh at me. But 7:00 is early to me. So
it is relatively early for meetings and stuff.
Yeah. But for them, it's the end of the workday. So we try to really be courteous and schedule it when it's convenient for all of us. And I don't mind waking up early because it's great to jump on a call with those folks and work with them.
Mm-hmm. And with COVID, then, are you working from home? Have you guys been working from home for the past year? Or do you always work from home?
That's a great question. So even though the Raleigh headquarters is here and I could go in if, without COVID being a thing, I could have gone into an office, and I hadn't, been going on to the office for 4 or 5 years. With so many of my coworkers actually not being in Raleigh or in the same office as me, it didn't really make sense for me to hold a place in the office. Some of my coworkers are there, but the majority of the team is scattered around the world. So it made a little bit more sense for me to work remote if that was something I was comfortable with. And headquarters is getting kind of packed. It was getting really busy in there. So I asked if I could start working remote. So I had gone remote about a year prior to the COVID.
No way.
Yeah. So
you were
I actually had a routine going.
Yeah.
And then all my teammates who had been going into offices, they were the ones being thrown for a loop. So I felt like I was able to be a point of stability for them and help them out.
Help everybody kind of figure out how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a similar situation. I didn't go home. I didn't go remote, I guess, for a long time, but I was remote the December before COVID.
Yeah, because that's when you changed jobs, right, Pagan?
Yeah. Changed job in December.
The hotel job you were working to working from home with your new job.
Yeah.
So you're already
initially I was like kicking myself in the butt that I'd moved my job, because I was like, oh, here I am working from home every single day, clocking in, clocking out, talking to customers. And I could have been at home paid by the government because it's COVID and nobody can work anyway. And I would have had like 6 to 8 weeks off. And like, now I'm so thankful. This is a year on. And, a lot of people still like, they don't have their jobs or they couldn't afford to stay on government. So they had to try and get something else or move jobs, try and do something remote.
I honestly don't know where I'd be right now if I left my job 3 months prior, 4 months prior.
Yeah.
And I have no idea how that would have worked out if I hadn't. Like, I don't
It's
know.
crazy, isn't it? Like, it's just crazy.
So many
like,
people I know are associated with theater or live productions, and they
yeah.
were the worst hit of all the folks that I know.
Yeah.
Layoffs, cancellations. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it
That's
just hits
great.
people. COVID hits people in a way that like you didn't even think of. And we're so fortunate to have work from home or remote opportunities as well.
I really do.
There you
Feel
go.
pretty fortunate.
Pretty fortunate. I think though, probably working from home then, going off of that, Stephanie, would probably give you a lot more time to explore or I guess engage in those hobbies or passions that you do like doing, like voiceover and voice acting. And I know you have a podcast,
Mm-hmm.
the Gen X Replay podcast.
Fellow
Do you want to tell us a little bit
podcaster.
about that? Yeah, fellow podcaster. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your podcast and how that came to be?
Yeah, it kind of started as me trying to do stuff on YouTube and realizing I don't like to be on camera.
Oops, sorry.
We're just
I don't mind
we're an
being
audio
on
only
camera.
podcast.
For our audio listeners,
yeah, for
disregard.
our listeners. Yeah.
No, it's more like I wanted it to be more conversational style, and a lot of times when there's a camera on you, it doesn't feel quite as relaxed when you're trying to have like a conversation when you're talking like one-on-one with someone. And so I kind of wanted it to feel like really personal, like two people talking versus two people, on camera. And that's nothing against this podcast or any others
God,
that
no.
do that for sure.
Not at all.
So I decided to just kind of do it as an audio only, but really I guess I was feeling a little bit of the weight of my age. I turned 48 in a month.
What?
So, yeah. So
that shocked me. I thought you were going to say something like 38.
No.
Oh my God. Stephanie, you can share the Fountain of Youth secrets after the show. Thank you.
Well, that's a big part of your podcast, isn't it? Like,
yeah. So I felt like, we were in a position where our generation had a voice, but the voice was often being drowned out by the generations before and after us. And so we had a lot of things that we could say and we're proud of. And I wanted to create a podcast around just talking about us and the things that we experienced growing up and how unique our experience was growing up, because we straddled the line between there's no such thing as the internet. No one has a computer in their house. What are you, crazy? I can't afford to put a computer in my house.
Yeah.
To now everyone having, a
computer in your pocket.
library in their pocket. So, So that and all the pop culture that came up with us, I just kind of wanted a place to talk about that and celebrate that and have fun.
So is it just yourself on the podcast?
So I host it and edit all the stuff, but I didn't want it to be just me just talking because I thought that would be boring. Who wants to listen to just me talking constantly unless they're taking one of my e-learning courses?
Then they have to.
Yeah,
then they have to. Yeah, I try to make it interesting.
That's what inflection's for.
Yes, exactly. But I started with the very first thing that we did was me and Hoot got together and started doing like post-episode discussions of Star Trek Picard as the first season was coming out. So that was a lot of fun because he got to trek out and then I got to experiment with this new podcasting thing. And learn the tools and get used to editing two people talking and not just me. And I've learned a lot. And my friend Frankie, who I know from the ballroom dance world and swing dance world, he said, "Hey, I've got an idea for your podcast I think would be fun." And he pitched me the throwbacks idea of talking about things from our childhood. So I do a portion of my podcast on Thursdays. That's Throwbacks Thursday. That's me and him talking about a topic. And we've been able to tie in other people that we know, depending on the topic, if they're like really into that. And then recently, Brandy and Charlotte and Shayna, all wonderful replayers that are also Gen Xers like myself, have been able
friends
to
of the Replayer podcast as well.
Yeah, indeed. Have been able to get together and do a little bit I call Unicorn Lunchbox, which is us talking about
how cute.
Just girl talk. It's more girl talk.
Oh,
Okay.
I see. I see. That's a good way to phrase it, though, for sure.
So, I wanted to come up with something that sounded like it came out of the 80s.
If there's rainbows and sparkles and
it actually does, though. That's fair. That was good because it's now relevant to like Gen Z as well with the unicorn idea. And I love it. I think that's good. You got it going. I like it.
The only thing more 80s is the talking Trans Am. So
we got to do a Knight Rider episode, man.
So would you be Gen X as well then, Daniel? No?
I actually fall very just shy of the line. Like I consider myself a Gen Xer, but I'm technically not based on the year that people believe Gen X starts.
Yeah.
What are you
usually
then?
cut it off
like
at
millennial?
1980.
Like what is it?
Right.
Yeah, they cut off at 1980.
But I'm 1985. But I still grew up with that similar experience of before the internet, you know, and like technology was still evolving as I was aging, and I have a lot of similar memories. I don't know.
Technically, you're a millennial.
Technically, I'm a millennial, but I sure as shit don't see myself as a millennial.
I
know a lot of millennials I know that had older siblings that were Gen X. Really, that when I talk to them, I just assume that they're Gen X because the conversation just feels.
I'm very much an 80s kid, like through and through. I love my 80s cartoons, 80s movies, 80s music.
Yes.
Like I love everything from the 80s. I don't know what it is, so it's hard for me to see myself as a millennial, honestly.
Yeah.
And I have that very distinct memory of life before the internet and life after the internet and life. I'm very nostalgic of like, man, I remember video games when they were just, beep, boop, boop, Atari joystick. And, I've been there for all of it. Like, obviously we had arcades, as early as 1980, but home gaming consoles started in 1985 when I was born. Obviously I was a little too young then to really be, playing those things, but that's what I grew up with was, an original Nintendo. I had an Atari, I had Space Invaders, I had a legit Space Invaders cabinet that I don't know how we got it. I think my neighbor stole it off the back of a truck or something, but
I didn't have any of that. I had PlayStation 1.
Yep.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a millennial through and through. Like I fucking
millennial.
A millennial.
Millennial. There you go.
It is.
Yeah. And I always tell people, just because my podcast is focusing on Gen X doesn't mean that I think any less of the other cohorts. It's just we have a very unique voice and a unique experience. And we absolutely love all the other cohorts that are our friends and family. We're just there to share our experience that's in a way that's unique to us. So.
That's fair. That's cool. So when you said that you were doing like Throwback Thursdays and things like that, are you talking about like games, videos, movies, or is it just a particular like a product that was in the 80s that you now miss, or you know what I mean? Like, is that what it is?
Everything from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy to Transformers to Goonies to
I remember Stretch Armstrong.
Yeah, stretch arms.
shouldn't.
There you go.
But I
Maybe
do.
it didn't come
Malls,
to
we
the
talked
UK
about
until
malls.
1995. I don't know.
South Africa.
Oh, you were still
I
not
was in
South
South Africa
Africa.
until 2002.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we talked about going to the mall or what libraries were like before we had the internet.
Yeah,
and,
that's fair.
yeah, well, things
Fucking
like
hell.
that.
I remember going to like try and sign up for the internet. Do you remember having to ask? Like, I remember having to ask my parents if I can use the internet. Because at that point, it wasn't like just a thing that was hooked up. You have to like dial into the internet and be like, can I go on the internet?
My earliest memories of the internet
Google or some shit.
were
I don't
literally AOL, like AOL Messenger.
AOL, yeah, AOL Messenger.
Hell yeah.
Mhm.
Get into like those chat rooms with a bunch of
that you would
creepers.
get everywhere.
See, now this is so fascinating because everyone's talking to me about chat rooms on AOL, and I never did that. I just had like friends on AOL.
Wow.
No, I never did like public chat rooms or anything. It was just friends of mine who would be like, "Hey, add me on AOL." I'm like, "Okay," and it was like as if the same way that you can see the icons on Skype. Yeah. It was like that. You just click onto the icons or whatever, and you can have a chat with those people. I was never in chat rooms and stuff though. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Shouldn't I don't think I should have been between the ages of like 0 and 10. I definitely don't think I should have been in any chat rooms.
Yeah, my first exposure to the internet was in college in the early 90s. And and by the time commercial internet started hitting homes, it was around the same time. So I knew people in college who had like, dial up to a bulletin board system kind of things, but they were very rare. Oh. By the time I left college in 96, everyone was talking about the computer and having to get online and having an email address and the World Wide Web was this newfangled thing, and everyone had to upgrade Windows 95 to 98 if they wanted to be able to run the latest browser or whatever.
Right? And look at you now. You help run Retro Replay website. Retro Replay
boom, solid segue.
I don't know about running.
Thank you, sir.
I don't run anything.
But no, well, you do. You help set it up and you help run it. Do you want to, I know that people can go back to the website episode and listen in on how I guess that came about, but do you want to just catch us up? Like, what was the process of this? Obviously you have a background in training in IT. What about websites or web design?
I have an additive to that too, because I wanted to mention, Steph, before the website, you also did the Retro Replay newsletter, correct?
That's right.
Yeah. So I
feel like that was a footwork.
True.
So like about a year into Retro Replay, right, when we were starting to have that ability to talk in the live chats and get to know each other, because early on we didn't have that. And then later on we started having these ways of talking to each other. We saw little factions building, and that's normal because you talk to people who you're comfortable talking with and have something in common with, not just Retro Replay, but then you find that you also are fans of this or fans of that. And so you go off into your little corners and you talk and whatever. And I felt like, these people on this side were really good friends and these people were really good friends, but they would look at each other over a gap and probably not realize that, hey, if they had the right conversation, they could create one big group. So that's what I wanted to do. So I reserved a domain. What was it? replayernews.net. And then I literally just put a Google Doc together that was little news stories about replayers in the community. So I would hear some little tidbit from somebody that I was following on Twitter, and I would say, hey, can I write a little story in the thing? And then I would share the email address and say, hey, email me a story if you want to share a story. And if you have events that you're planning, because everyone's going to conventions and wanting to make sure that they met each other,
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I literally pointed the domain to the Google Doc, and that was the Replayer News for a few months.
And there was a time too where you started sharing our podcast as well. Like you would have a hype,
Exactly.
you would have a, here's something within the community. There's the Replayer podcast, along with other replayers and other events they were doing. And I believe there's one or two other replayers out there who have podcasts as well that you might have attached to there. And I remember early on having conversations with you that may have also influenced the involvement with the website too.
Yeah, because I was trying to keep the thing to keep this
You had a wiki
newsletter
page,
going,
right, or
but I
something?
felt was that?
Did you have a wiki page?
I tried to create the Replayer wiki. That didn't go very far because that takes a lot of time to put together a wiki.
Yeah.
I actually preserved all the information into a Google Doc, so I have an archive of it.
Oh, cool.
That was me trying to document each episode of Retro Replay and like the significant events during each episode.
That's why we
and fun
talked,
quotes.
because there was a time
Wow.
when Pagan and I had considered doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And I actually
God,
started
time consuming.
I started
So
rewatching the
time-consuming.
original episode and noting how long they were, how many deaths there were, how many appearances of Christopher Walken there was, how like I was noting any little thing I could, and I started building a document like that, and it was like kind of along those same lines.
Yeah.
It is time consuming though. I do agree. I mean, I had to do some of that research anyway for the Retro Replay podcast when they were doing Retro Rewind stuff.
Yeah.
So I'd be like going back through them and like watching them and making notes. Super fucking fun. Time consuming, but fun as hell.
Yeah, for sure. Like a 1 hour or a 1 hour episode would usually take me about 4 hours to just kind of jot everything down that I wanted to
sit through.
Because I was trying to capture all the quotes that were fun.
Especially if you do like timestamps, like like that's all very
nice.
tedious.
That's next level right there.
Yeah.
So this eventually, like this, I guess enthusiasm for wanting to dive into those episodes that led you to the website. How did this come about? Like your involvement with RetroReplayShow.com?
So I had talked to Dan, and then I guess Brandy was also in those conversations.
Yeah, like if I can give any insight to that, the way I remember it was kind of early on when Drew was saying that they're looking at reworking the website. And I had known through talking to you, Steph, about what you were doing with the newsletter and the archive, and Brandy's background with like editing and setting up shows and things. And I essentially put it to both of you, like maybe you talk to Drew.
Yeah.
And like the two of you reached out to him, and kind of like established this groundwork. And he basically said, here's what we've done. Like, obviously you got this role for a reason. Like Drew didn't just hand it to you guys. He saw what you've done. You saw the what you've done in the past, the commitments you've taken, and the work that you've done in different experiences. So my involvement was a little bit like outside of it beyond that though.
Yeah. And I had written several years ago, I wrote for howstuffworks.com. I actually wrote under the pen name Stephanie Crawford because there was already a Stephanie Watson writing for them. So
that's a cool pseudonym, though. That's a good one.
Thanks. That was one of my grandmother's maiden names.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so I had a little bit of background of being able to write articles for websites. Going all the way back to the early 90s in my college years when the web was this newfangled thing, I learned how to make websites too. So I actually have some background on that, and I do that as part of my work too. So we do some HTML level stuff in what we do. Trying to tweak. It's one of those things where the tool can't do but about 90% of what we need. And so me, as being the person who knows HTML, goes in and does the other 10% to make it do what we want it to do.
Yeah.
So I felt really comfortable. I'm totally comfortable with website work. So from either the writing standpoint or the programming standpoint, so it felt natural to want to volunteer in that capacity.
How did that go from there?
Awesome.
Like, I remember you and Brandy talking, but then what happened? Like, you guys came together to approach Drew, correct?
Yeah, I think Brandy reached out first because she reached out to him and had a conversation, then reached out to me and had a conversation. Then the three of us started talking at intervals as Drew said, "Hey, we've got some ideas, but things aren't fleshed out yet. But we want to make sure that that you're in the loop." So we would check in with him every few weeks as things got closer to when he said he would need to loop us in. And eventually the conversations just turned from him giving us updates to him telling us, okay, what's next? And then then I guess my instinct is also project management. I have a little bit of a project management mindset when it comes to these things. And so I jumped in and proposed, okay, the next thing is you give us the list of contributors and let's just get all the contributors together to talk about what this is going to look like. And so we had that initial list.
That comes back to a tweet that Drew did back in January, I think, of last year, where he actually tweeted out saying, we're looking to grow Retro Replay. If you're a writer, creator, what have you, send me something. And I'm sure there was hundreds of people, like myself included, and others who had sent something to Drew to say, yeah, here, this is what I do. I don't know what you need it for, but here you go.
Yeah. And I knew that my time of being able to do my own newsletter was it wasn't necessarily that I didn't have the time, but I wasn't getting input enough from the community to really justify keeping that going.
Fair.
And with the website redesign, Drew's vision was to have the community engaged on the site. So I'm like, that's the piece that we were missing, that place to come together. So my newsletter would then become redundant because we would have a place to come together. So I started pouring my energy into that. Now the domain redirects to the website.
Oh, amazing. Oh, that's kind of cool. And so, I mean, what do you do with your job for Retro Replay then on the website? Do you help curate content? Do you run any behind the scenes or anything like that? What does your job with Retro Replay's website, management look like?
So I do a little bit of project management. So that's looking at it from the back end, and we're using Asana as a project management tool. And looking at, what's coming up, what's currently in our queue, looking at the overall schedule, seeing where we have gaps that we need to fill, and trying to get the right conversations going with the contributor team, because I like to think of us as a team, and talk with them about, okay, here's where we're having gaps, or here's the kind of topics we might that a lot of people are starting to talk about now. See if you want to grab one of those, or this person's looking to collaborate on this topic. See if you can jump in and help them out. So I'm trying to look for ways to get the team, engaged in particular areas, but also just editing is a big part of it.
Editing.
So I am an editor professionally, so it made sense for me to apply some of what I do to Retro Replay. And as an editor, I always tell people, an editor's not there as a step, as a barrier, as a gateway that you have to get through. An editor is part of your team. An editor is there to get the best of you out to your audience. And it's a facilitator, not a barrier. So I've been able to jump on calls with the contributors and actually have conversations about how to improve a little part of their article. And I make sure that I'm capturing their words. I'm asking them questions instead of telling them what to write, and trying to I wouldn't say coach, but a little bit of mentoring, advising for those who don't have much of a writing background, because we do have a lot of contributors that have got great ideas and great articles. They just need a little bit of the help getting from basic writing to, the article writing level that would be good for the site. So I'm helping move them across that gap and making sure that the best of their stories are coming through. So I feel like it's a team effort when I do editing. So most of my time is spent in that capacity. And then other than that, I also send out a weekly update to everyone, kind of letting people know the bigger picture of what's going on behind the scenes. I think that comes from working at Red Hat. It's an open company. Transparency is really important. And the more people know about what's going on behind the scenes, the better they can have conversations, the more confident they are, the less fear they have about what they put forward. So
sure. People aren't sitting there wondering like,
No, that
why
sounds like a
hasn't Drew
great
published this thing yet? Well, Drew's just had a baby, and
did
what?
what? This news to me. No wonder he wasn't returning my calls. No, you're doing a great job with the website, though. Yourself and Brandy are really killing it with the website and content, and all of the creators
Couldn't
coming
do it without
together. For sure. I mean, like, you guys are such a great team, and you work really well together. So that's visible from the website and how well it's doing. So,
and we're getting some
really
great content over there. The articles that are being written are just, they're different, but in a good way,
in a good way. Yes.
Right, exactly. Like, some of the perspectives that we're getting on the website for different things are just, I wouldn't expect to find them anywhere else, honestly. And it's definitely unique, and it's actually extremely humbling and flattering when I see somebody write an article and they talk about, me or Pagan or Brandy. They shout out other replayers saying like, they had an involvement in this,
really
or they
homely.
influenced this decision. So I'm
it just
excited.
Definitely. Sorry, I keep cutting you off.
It's
I think there's a
fine.
bit of lag on my end.
I know you want to get in there too. You want to share your passion. I understand.
No, I just think like it is very it just feels very like a team.
Yeah.
And community driven.
Community, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I definitely wanted it to feel that way. And I did start a Discord server so that we could actually all talk as contributors, and have more of that collaborative space as well. And that has helped, I think, a lot in making people feel a little bit more connected to each other, and not just a contributor to the website, but a contributor to a bigger effort that we're all trying to do here.
For sure. And if anybody wants to go check out those articles, you can find them on www.retroreplayshow.com. One of the articles actually that we are going to do, that we've started implementing shouting out articles that are on the website that are available for you to read right now. And one of them is by yourself, I believe, our pandemic vocabulary.
Stephanie.
I believe it's Stephanie Watson. You might know her, formerly known as Stephanie Crawford. Yeah.
I mean,
do you want to tell us a little bit about that article before we close out the show?
Yeah. So it's been an interesting year, right?
Yeah.
For everybody.
For sure.
A lot of what connects us comes from the language we use to talk to each other. And one of the reasons dialects form is not only being within a specific region, but because we want to communicate with the person next to us and connect with them. And in certain languages, you've heard it with twins, twins develop their own language because, they're connected. And I think what happened with this pandemic is that as people found new ways to communicate because they couldn't communicate in their old ways, they found new social circles. They found new social formats. And as a result, they developed their own bits of language around those. For example, Among Us became such a big phenomenon as people, because you didn't have to have a game console to play it. You can do it on your mobile phone. So more people could get engaged and play that. So some of the vocabulary around that game started filtering out into other parts of your life. Like I've told people I thought they were sus outside of the game because I doubted what they were trying to tell me. That's sus.
I've literally just bought a t-shirt. I've just bought a t-shirt that says, if you're reading this, not gonna lie, that's kind of sus. Like, there's a picture of Among Us character on it. I love that.
Yeah. And some words change too, right? So face masks. If somebody said like 12 months, over a year ago, hey, I'm going to go buy out a face mask. What would be the first thing that pops in your head, right? Oh, you're going to get something for Halloween? It's not even Halloween yet.
Are you doing some painting or something?
Are you doing some painting? Yeah.
Yeah.
But now everyone has masks that they use to go out in public. So, yeah.
Custom masks.
So fantastic.
Specialty masks.
Honestly,
designer masks.
I don't know.
Got a Rolex mask.
Because I know China had obviously done this for years prior. And especially in Asian airports, if you ever pass through Asian airports, you would very seldom not see somebody with a face mask on.
Yeah.
Right. The pollution levels being
very common over
right,
there.
that's true. And also, I believe it's a cultural thing. I did ask somebody about this once, and it was a cultural thing that, like, if you felt unwell, you were polite enough to wear a face mask to not infect somebody else. That's how they were raised or something. You can correct me if I'm wrong, chat. You can put it in the comments. But that's what I've been told.
I can say I've seen that firsthand because I've been to Hong Kong. And I've seen people walking around wearing face masks, randomly. Like, not everybody, just intermittently.
Just people, yeah. I just think that's so fascinating. And then, like, when we all started wearing them, and, like, you'd go around and, when we were in level 3 for the, 5 weeks that it happened in the last year, when we could actually go out and go downtown and everything, and people were still out and they were all wearing face masks, it felt so strange. And I was like, this is so alien to us almost, and yet it is something that is just regularly cultural in another part of the world. And then I was like, but this is genius. Think of the advertising. It's like, just think of wearing something just to advertise. I'm like, brilliant.
we saw that in the elections season here in the US. People were doing their campaign logos on masks.
Hell, since the pandemics happened, I've had probably 4 different face masks with new video games on them alone.
Amazing.
Nice. Wow.
Because I think, look, it's a shitty time, right? Nobody's gonna sugarcoat that. It's a fucking shit time.
Absolutely.
But to wear a face mask, honestly, I have a couple that are either just black or gray or something, and there's one in my drawer in my bedroom that's you should definitely wear that out. That'll definitely protect you from all of the diseases, Dan.
It's a little solid and hard, but
you can make it work. Strap it on, it'll be fine. That's what she said. Anyway, so I have a face mask that's like rainbows and like it's just like a really colorful, bright one. I'm like, I fucking love this mask because it makes me feel so nice and like happy and the situation shit, but like we can all just wear something that like represents our own personality or
I have a Godzilla one.
That's nice. Right. It's almost like
one with rhinestones.
I want one.
Do you wear a cowboy hat with it? Please wear a cowboy hat with it.
Please, yes.
You have to.
Please, yes.
So you can say,
I love a rhinestone one.
I'm the rhinestone cowboy.
Please, yes. You know what? I didn't see a rhinestone one the other day. I saw like a sequined one and I was like, oh, tempting.
Nice.
Very tempting. But it's also become like an expression now, isn't it? Like an expression of taste and personality too, because of how we're hiding half of our face all the time.
And it's right here. Like you can't not see that when you're talking to somebody, like if you're out in public or.
Yeah, true.
Like you can't not see what's happening right here.
And 2 things. 1, it's super great for winter because it keeps your face warm.
Yes.
So good. I was so thankful for this. I was like, this is the best fucking thing because your face is always warm. I'm like, yes, it's great. Second thing is people still recognize me. And I know that sounds so stupid. And I don't mean like I'm famous, they recognize me. What I mean is like people downtown that I know will still be like, oh, hey, Pagan. And they'll start waving at me. And I'm like,
yeah, I saw someone I knew in the grocery store the other day. And I'm like,
I've taken my my makeup's
that pokes
off,
so
my
many
hair's
holes
up, and
through
I just
so
have
many
like
comic books and TV shows where a character just puts a mask on and like they're unrecognizable.
Right, but as soon as you cover their eyes, unrecognizable.
True.
So people, so there actually is must be like a psychological recognizability with the eyes and the top half of your face. Whereas if you cover this half, it's almost unidentifiable from the bottom half.
Well, think about
there's an episode in this. There's a whole episode in this.
The Princess Bride. He covers the top half of his face.
Yeah. Zorro.
Yeah.
The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yep. That's it. They'll never know we're turtles.
They'll never know we're Ninja Turtles. Thank you so much for not at all. Thank you so much for being here today on this very special episode where we got to know Stephanie Watson, the lady behind the Retro Replay Show website. One of the ladies. One of the ladies behind the Retro Replay Show website. That's made it what it is today. So thank you so much for being here. Do you want to promote socials or anything that you want to? Yes, cheers to more. Of course, everybody go and read our pandemic vocabulary article on retroreplayshow.com. But is there something you'd like to promote?
So a couple of things. You can follow me on Twitter at Stephanie Does VO. And the Gen X Replay podcast, if you look, it's GenX Replay, all one word. By the way, not related to the Retro Replay thing. I reserved that domain years ago. But that's all one word. So look for Gen X Replay podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or Apple Podcasts. It's also on Anchor.fm. I'm also acting in a comedy detective story podcast called the Potchkey Audio Chronicles. And we're all volunteers. We don't get paid. So it's kind of come out sporadically. But we're getting ready to release a couple of new episodes soon. So look for that on potchkeyaudio.chronicles.com and on your favorite podcast platforms. And that's me.
Thank you. And we'll pop all of those links in the show notes below for everybody to but thank you again for being here and joining us today on this special episode and letting us poke you with questions. It's been lovely and very insightful. If anybody has questions about the podcast, about Stephanie, about anything really regarding Retro Replay, you can send them over to members@retroreplayshow.com or the thereplayerpodcast@gmail.com. And we will also be able to answer your questions there. Specifically, if you have membership questions, though, members@retroreplayshow.com. And you can stay up to date with all of our podcast uploads by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google. Also, make sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook too, which is the Replayer Podcast, and we'll link that in the show notes of the episode. So, thank you guys. That's
and you can always find us on the retroreplayshow.com. Woo!
Yes. retroreplayShow.com. Just paste that about 20 times in the show notes.
Bang, bang,
just
bang,
be like,
bang.
Did you get it yet? retroreplayShow.com.
Wild inflatable wacky air.
Flailing.
I used to be able to do that. Wacky inflatable arm flailing tube man. Wacky inflatable arm flailing.